It was a cold, foggy evening in the small town of Millfield. The streets were deserted, save for the occasional flicker of a street lamp. The eerie silence was broken only by the distant sound of carnival music drifting through the air. A traveling circus had set up just outside town, and while most of Millfield's residents had already visited, tonight was the last night of the show. Jenny, a high school junior, was intrigued by the circus. She had heard whispers about a mysterious clown named Smiley, who only performed on the final night. According to local legend, Smiley wasn't part of the official troupe. He just appeared, performed, and vanished. Those who had seen him described his act as both mesmerizing and terrifying. Curiosity piqued, Jenny convinced her friend Mark to accompany her to the circus. They arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the circus tents. The air was thick with the smell of popcorn and cotton candy, but there was an underlying scent of something metallic, something wrong. They wandered through the grounds, watching the various acts, acrobats, fire breathers, and magicians. As the night wore on, Jenny began to doubt if Smiley would show up. Just as they were about to leave, an announcement echoed through the fairgrounds. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the moment you've all been waiting for. Please gather in the big top for the final performance of the night." Jenny and Mark hurried to the main tent and found seats near the back. The tent was dimly lit, with shadows dancing across the walls. The crowd hushed as the ringmaster stepped into the center of the ring. "Tonight we have a special treat for you," the ringmaster said, his voice trembling slightly. "A performer unlike any other. Please welcome Smiley." The lights dimmed further, and a single spotlight focused on the entrance. Out of the darkness emerged Smiley, a tall, lanky figure in a tattered clown suit. His face was painted white, with a wide, sinister grin that seemed to stretch unnaturally across his face. His eyes, though, were the most unsettling, dark, hollow pits that seemed to bore into the souls of everyone in the audience. Smiley's act began with simple tricks, juggling, unicycle riding, and balloon animals. But there was an edge to his performance, a sense of unease that grew with each passing moment. The audience watched in a trance, unable to look away. As Smiley's act progressed, the tricks became darker. He produced a deck of cards, each card depicting a gruesome scene. He twisted balloon animals into grotesque shapes that seemed to twitch and writhe as if alive. The final trick was the most disturbing. Smiley invited a volunteer from the audience, a young girl named Emily. He handed her a small, ornate box and instructed her to open it. Inside was a tiny mirror. "Look closely," Smiley whispered, his voice echoing unnaturally. Emily did as she was told, and as she gazed into the mirror, her face contorted in terror. She screamed, but no sound came out. Her body went limp, and Smiley caught her before she fell. "Thank you for your participation," Smiley said, his grin widening. He carried Emily to the edge of the ring and gently laid her down. The audience, still in a trance, applauded. Jenny felt a chill run down her spine. Something was very wrong. She grabbed Mark's arm and pulled him toward the exit. As they reached the edge of the tent, she glanced back at Smiley. His dark eyes met hers, and his grin grew even wider. They stumbled outside, the cold night air a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere inside the tent. "We need to go," Jenny said, her voice shaking. "Now." They ran through the deserted carnival grounds, the distant sound of the carnival music following them. As they reached Jenny's car, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning, they saw Smiley standing under a flickering street lamp, his grin visible even from a distance. Jenny fumbled with her keys, finally unlocking the car. They jumped in and sped away, the eerie figure of Smiley growing smaller in the rearview mirror. But as they drove through the empty streets of Millfield, Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that Smiley's dark eyes were still watching them. That night, Jenny couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Smiley's face. The next morning, she learned that Emily, the girl from the audience, had disappeared without a trace. The circus had packed up and left town, leaving no evidence that it had ever been there. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of Smiley began to fade. But sometimes, late at night, Jenny could still hear the faint sound of carnival music drifting through the air, and she knew deep down that Smiley was still out there waiting for his next performance.